Say like a sentence.
Say like a sentence.
You're listening to Just 3 Clicks, and this is episode 21, and I'm sat here with David. How's it going?
Not too bad. I feel like we should do a bit of a disclaimer and say Jamie is still alive. I seem to be doing most of the podcast in a minute, but Jamie is still around.
Oh, yeah. I think it was supposed to be Jamie today, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's been homeschooling his kids. So
Aren't kids back now? Are kids back now?
today he's probably having a break because if I'd been homeschooling for like 3 months, I'd be,
Yeah,
going crazy.
that's fair enough. Well, we're going to be speaking about, I don't know, like we're supposed to be talking about the white label product now. We've not really said anything about this publicly yet. So by the time this comes out, I'm assuming we probably would have. So I think there's a plan, some sort of plan as to how this is being rolled out. So essentially, we're going to be talking a little bit about white label, what that means for customers, and also if you're not a Viddyoze customer, how you might be able to kind of tap into that opportunity. It's quite a good.
I think the thinking behind why we're doing it too. I think we can probably pull a bit of our strategic thought into this podcast, maybe.
Yeah. So Nindy's put a question on there about kind of the impact of this particular product on the business, and kind of the strategy behind that. Just quickly, actually, there is a point here on the budget, which is a little bit political, I suppose, but views on the budget, what impact that's going to have on Viddyoze. What do you think? When we say the budget, by the way, we're talking about the financial, budget, government announcement stuff that happens in the UK. So it doesn't line up with anywhere else, does it? It's just a British thing.
I think corporation tax has gone up 6%, so from 19 to 25, but that's in 2023.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to be paying more taxes as a business. Whether I agree with that or not, does it really matter? Because taxes are going up. I'm not a big fan of high taxes, and I think especially with companies, the higher the taxes, the more you put people off being in business realistically.
Are there people that like high taxes?
Yeah, of course.
Like who?
This is too political for my liking, really. I know quite a few people who believe in high taxation. And what those people have got in common generally is that they don't own a business. And then you've got people who own businesses who, want to pay less taxes. And I think you've got a bunch of people in the middle who just take what comes to them. And I think my opinion is I can't control what the government's going to tax me.
Yeah.
So my opinion is whatever the tax rates are, I'll just pay them. If I can mitigate my tax in a above board way, then great. If I can't do, then just pay the taxes. That's kind of my opinion. So I think tax rates have gone up, but what's my opinion? Nothing really.
Yeah.
Just can't control it, unfortunately. Would it be good to? Let's say we made £1 million profit, yeah. So we're going to be £60,000 worse off, as a business on tax.
Yeah.
Would I rather spend that £60,000 on a member of staff or 2 or 3 members of staff, so that we put money into the economy that way? I.e., that person's got a wage. They can grow their career. They can pay taxes, not just pay as you earn, but when they buy products, they're paying excise duty, they're paying VAT. I'd rather contribute tax via creating the need for labour in the market. But again, maybe that's getting too political or
No, I don't know. I think I don't know anybody that wants to pay higher taxes. I think it's different when you don't own a business,
Do
particularly.
you know many people who want other people to pay higher taxes?
What I think is that if you don't own a business, like you don't look at tax the same way, because like I remember when I had a normal job or whatever, or when somebody basically prepaid my tax. I think it's very different when you get a paycheck and your tax is prepaid. You don't always look at it different. You don't look at it the same way, because essentially when you're paid every month, you've got your paycheck and it's like, right, that's what I've received this month. Like very few people really actually look at it and break it down and say, okay, well, this is where my national insurance went. This is where.
Well, for me, it
this
was always
went.
like net pay. So I'd be like, oh, what's my net? And then I never looked at my gross pay. It was always, what's my net pay? Because that was after tax. And that's all I cared about, because that's what I was spending.
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember the first time I had to do my taxes as an actual business, and it was just like, shit, this is a lot of money.
Yeah, because imagine kind of if you kind of got a job and you get your salary kind of net of tax. Just imagine like one day someone comes in and basically says, right, you owe 40% of your cash. You've got to pay that over as tax. Now,
Yeah,
we have to pay the tax, but the emotional kind of the mental aspect of seeing 20%, 40% of your kind of available cash balance just going, it's kind of a bit jarring sometimes. So you've got to manage it properly. I.e., you've got to maybe put that to one side and not count it. I think that's the main issue with tax is like you've got to plan for it. Like as a young business, you might make $100,000 profit, but you might have reinvested all that profit, in the next tax year back into the business. But you've got to find the money to pay the tax.
I think that's the thing. Like when I was starting my business and making money, I was just kind of like spending the money. It was just like, I'll just I'll go and buy a new camera, or I'll go and buy this or buy that. Like I wasn't thinking, maybe I should put 20% aside just to. I don't do that now, to be honest. Like I still don't do that. I don't think like that. Like now it's just like you just save money basically, so you're always kind of covered. But I don't know. Like I don't know. I've got views on taxes. I think it's all fucking. I think it's a very backwards system that we have. I think. I don't know. Especially in the States, like for all the US viewers listening in, maybe they can kind of chime in. There's a lot of kind of alternative, research that's been done into how taxation actually works in America. I don't know it well enough in the UK, which is quite ironic because I live here. But I know that there's some weird kind of policies around how it works in America. So I don't know.
I think for me, governments are inherently inefficient in how they distribute capital. They waste a lot of money and a lot of resource because they're so big. Look at the NHS in the UK, like amazing organisation for what it does. But if you went in there as a business owner, the amount of waste you would see would be, criminal in some ways. But that's
like how much they spend on a particular thing, like a marketing budget, for instance.
Well, it could be anything. It could be phones. It could be iPads. It could be, medication. Like some of the vaccines they're buying, there'll be, there could be cheaper ways to buy vaccines, but they don't do because, it could be a political thing. It could be, someone's preference. But I've heard stories about the NHS from various people about how, they treat cash and the amount that gets wasted within that. Now, if you imagine £1 billion goes to waste in the NHS, which is probably a small amount compared to what actually does. or £1 million could be saved. That's £1 million of taxation essentially. That's £1 million of money which could have gone to somewhere that it had more of an impact. So rather than wasting it on, within that organisation, because I'm not saying that spending money there is a waste, but it could be more efficient. That could have gone onto the welfare state. It could have gone towards homelessness. It could have gone somewhere more productive.
Mm.
So I think my opinion on taxation is that rather than it be done and kind of distributed on a countrywide kind of level, it should be, it should just be distributed in a different way, or there should at least be more kind of entrepreneurs in government, people who run businesses kind of go and manage the finances a bit. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not a overtly political person. So, and the main reason I'm not is because it's all about opinion, and I'm not. There's opinion, and then there's obviously fact and reasoning and education. I'm not educated enough to go in and have an argument with somebody or a debate on, on politics. I'm just not. I did economics. I studied economics. I know bits, but I'm not an economist. So if I'm not a politician, I'm not an economist. Then me going and having an opinion, it's not really based. It's not based on anything other than my own experiences and my own agenda. So I don't want to pay more tax, so I'll be against tax. But then I don't know that if tax rates were zero, I don't know what would happen.
Yeah.
Like I might want that because I don't want to pay tax, but then the country could be absolutely screwed. If you reduce tax rates by 10%, what happens to the economy? Well, there's people out there who will model that completely in hundreds of different ways, and then they're educated enough to make a decision on what would happen. The people running countries and running, departments within countries, they're not stupid. And I think what we see nowadays is, people on Facebook who, got standard jobs, no formal political, financial education, who are experts in running economies. And, I would never claim to be that person. So,
no. I think there's obviously, our budget, and not just our UK budget, but globally, there is a impending doom on the economy because of the whiplash that's been created by the pandemic. So we have tremendous amounts of government money printing that has to sustain the ongoing efforts of furlough schemes, grants, and all of these things that we have to supposedly put into place to enable us to keep, staying afloat whilst we're trying to get through this thing. So, I guess that's the cause, and the effect is we pay higher tax. So just looking at it from a completely black and white, that's what's happened. That's what it is. And then I suppose opinions around that is whatever your opinion is, really. Is it, is it just that's just the way it is or whatever? So
yeah, I think my opinion is I can't control that.
Yeah.
So, I have to pay taxes or else I can go to jail. I don't want to go to jail, so I pay my taxes. And whatever the tax rate is, just got to pay it.
If you said this in New York in the 80s, somebody would say you're talking about the mafia. Just saying. So, that's my view. But, oh well, I'll pay my taxes anyway. So, that's the budget. Lindy's asked the roadmap. Before we get to the roadmap, actually, there's something not on here that I thought it's not relevant really, but I think it's like a hot topic today. Because yesterday we had the former princess of the UK, who just so happens to be American, which I still can't get my head around that. It's just really random. But so we've got Meghan Markle, Suits, good show. I liked Meghan then. It was a good show.
But you don't like her now?
I don't like her now, no. I think just what we just saw last night was absolutely just... Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Did you watch it? What a farce the whole thing was. It's like watching It was like watching Jeremy Kyle.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Jerry Springer, if you're in the US.
I think my opinion, right, on this is if you're leaving the UK to get away from the press because you want more privacy, but then you go and have an interview with one of the kind of world's most renowned people, and you promote it weeks in advance, like.
I mean, she's the ultimate influencer. Who's bigger than Oprah?
Yeah.
There is no one bigger.
If you want privacy, but then you go and talk about things that are private in public, then you've contradicted yourself. So, like, if they'd have gone to Canada and then the US, and then that was it, no Netflix deal, no nothing. They just cracked on with their lives. Because I mean, let's face it, they could go. I mean, she could have gone back to acting.
Of course, yeah.
Harry's got.
She should go back to acting.
Yeah, Harry's got some inheritance from Diana, apparently. But they're living in a $14 million
Exactly.
mansion. Like,
it's ridiculous.
Go live in a $500,000 property.
What made me it's so infuriating because the whole positioning of this interview, right? This quote, unplanned interview, when it's clearly planned, is that they're trying to make out that this poor, victimized couple they've been abused Meghan's been racially abused, and Harry is just so hurt because he's been put in this position. He's a fucking prince. Like, he's a prince. Well, are we literally saying that the prince is underprivileged because he grew up in royalty and got married to a millionaire actress who was the princess, and now they live in a $14 million house, and we're supposed to feel sorry for that? It's like, so that's the one side of it that just really pisses me off. It's like, just come on. But then what was great about it, right? And this is when you can see how propaganda works. And it's like, as soon as the interview ends, you're instantly thrown in the face of the news, and the news comes right on, and it's like, so we dropped the bombshell. We've had a massive bombshell that's going to affect the monarchy for decades. They're going to be looked down on for decades because of this bombshell that's been dropped. And the bombshell is that somebody, again, can't say who it was. There's no confirmation of who it was, or if it was actually even said, actually. But apparently there was some concerns about the skin color of Meghan's child, right? My questions are, where does this come from? Who was it? If you can't tell us who it was, it's literally irrelevant. I mean, telling us that the monarchy is racist, I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but I'm going to just say it because it's true. Like, if we're in 2021 and we're only now coming to terms with the fact that the monarchy is racist, I think, like, we just have to realize that we're just being told something that inherently we actually always knew anyway, because of course they're racist. Like, it's like an elephant in the room. Like, the guy's mum was murdered. I don't know if I should say that because technically she wasn't murdered. She was in a car crash, but she was murdered because she was basically...
I'm not laughing at that. I'm just laughing at Joey going fully in right now.
Yeah, because it was just infuriating, honestly. And all that interview had the key components of just manipulating people's perception of the situation. So you've got Harry basically saying, oh, it reminds me of, it's like history repeating itself. So what you're trying to say is that Meghan's basically being put in the same position Diana was put in. She's not, because Diana literally was murdered and she prophesized her murder. She said she was going to be killed by her husband, and that never got investigated. It never got looked into. But that's literally a fact. Like, she said she was going to be murdered by her husband in a car crash. She then dies in a car crash. And the reason she got killed was because she was dating an Arab or, whatever. And that wasn't acceptable for the monarchy. Now we have Meghan, who is obviously not a white British woman. She's not part of that, that lineage that she's supposed to be a part of. So she's outcast, and that might be the case. That might be what's actually happened. But I'm not gonna for any second believe that the real reason that they're doing this interview is because they just want to out the family. Like, they didn't out anything. Like, nothing even got said.
If you, at the start, they matronly confirmed
Yeah.
that she was not getting paid for the interview. Yeah. Now, she probably didn't get paid for the interview. I agree with that. But the PR, the value of the PR generated by that interview, ready for the Netflix deal,
When are they going to write the book?
is unreal. Like, you're talking probably hundreds of millions potentially of PR
Yeah.
value is now being created, ready for the Netflix deal, ready for
Books,
Spotify deal.
all the merchandise. Like, there'll be all
what's
kinds of
happened
things.
is they've taken their brand, their names essentially. They've signed the deals, and as part of those deals, they would have said, "We've got an interview with Oprah." 100%. That will have been part of the contract, because then what has happened is Netflix and Spotify are going to benefit from Oprah's influence,
Yeah.
and everyone's getting paid.
This is the problem with the way media works at the moment, how it's always worked. Like, we've got two people who are supposedly able to come onto a very large platform like Oprah. She's a platform. She's not just a person. She's literally a platform. Like, they can go out and talk about the royal family and what's wrong and all of this stuff. They gave us very little substance to what actually happened. There is a claim that there was some racism. Fucking newsflash. And now that's going to be the focal point of the royal family, is that, there may be some racism in the palace. So for me, and again, I don't normally like to be controversial on the podcast, but I just think this just has to be said. So we've got a claim from former Prince Harry that says he's been outcast by this family and he's been financially cut off. Financially cut off in my head means you're not receiving funds. You're not basically being looked after by your family. In the same breath, in that same interview, he says his relationship with his grandmother, who is the Queen, is fantastic. These two things don't make any sense to me. It's very contradictory. Yeah. You've got, well, my Queen loves me and I love my Queen. She's my grandma, but I've been financially cut off at the same time. And, my family is basically trapped in the monarchy because of the tabloid. Well, Oprah asked the question, well, who's in charge? Is it the royal family, or is it the news media? Who controls who here? If we're actually going to believe for a second that the royal family doesn't have any influence over the media, it's insane. Of course they do. Like, the Queen could click her fingers and things could change. It's up to the royal family. And the other thing about this, the massive elephant in the room that I know a lot of people were kind of hoping for yesterday, was some clarity on Prince Andrew, because they've been around Prince Andrew, and Harry's been around Prince Andrew. Like, so it would have been nice to have actually addressed the massive elephant in the room, because Prince Andrew hasn't been financially cut off, and he's not been, there's no incidents of Prince Andrew having all these massive issues with the royal family because of the issues that he's had with, I won't go into it, but the issues Prince Andrew has had, like, that's very bad. Like, the stuff that Andrew has been accused of is a lot worse than Meghan making Kate cry, or whatever bullshit, like her eating an avocado and then being like told she's X, Y, and Z. It's like, what are we even focusing on? Like, why are we being distracted by this really clearly engineered story that it's like watching EastEnders? It's like, I don't know what that is in America, like a sitcom. It's like watching a sitcom, basically. Whereas the real issue of human trafficking and child abuse, and how the royal family has been surrounded by these issues for decades, not just now, but for decades, i.e. Jimmy Savile, and never done anything about it. But we don't even talk about that. For me, that's what's fucked up with the media and with propaganda. It's like, we get shown something and we don't address the real issues. And that whole thing was just a massive farce. It was just...
Well, today all you've got is like, whose team are you on? Team Meghan or team...
I logged onto LinkedIn this morning, and it's like, oh, well, it's just one case of racism. Let's try and get the facts. And it's like, but we're missing the point, because that's what the whole interview did. It just infuriates people about racism. But it's a distraction, because we're always going to have racism. It's always there. It's always going to be an issue. We're always going to have Black Lives Matter, and those political movements and the activism is always going to grow over the next couple of decades. But what that's done now is completely pivoted the problem away to racism and completely tucked away this whole bullshit about Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's currently actually being questioned and is in court, essentially, about what's happened with Jeffrey Epstein. And all of that stuff's now going to just be brushed away, and it's gone forever. But as soon as this interview ends, we've got the news basically shoving it down our throat and making us believe that this interview was some sort of bombshell. But it wasn't a bombshell. It was nothing. I don't know what am I angry at? Like, who am I blaming for the racism?
It's just, my view is, in society, there's people who have got that much power. We just don't know it. So what happens in society, what happens in the media, it's not a journalist who's found a story who's reporting it. It's a choreographed script that has been thought out and planned, and it's there to influence decisions and make things happen and stop things from happening. It's a tool to do that. It's propaganda. So I think if you read into the media too much and you allow that to drive your decisions and what you think, you're playing into the hands of people who, are trying to control what it is your perception is, really. But I think that happens in day-to-day life in many different ways.
It's just propaganda.
Yeah.
We've had it from, I don't know when, but propaganda has been existing since probably the beginning of time. And the definition of propaganda literally is to use medium to control people's beliefs and to sway people's belief systems. And that's what we do. That's what social media does, and the news and everything collectively now is so insidious in how our belief systems are changed just like that. I had a conversation yesterday. Well, do you know what? I won't go into that. No, I won't go into that. That's too much. So let's leave that. We'll talk about that later. So yeah, I thought that was just an interesting segue. I think it was, that's just basically what's going on in the UK at the moment. We've had the budget. We've had the Queen come on TV. Again, it's very, to me, it seems very sequential. Like things happen in a sequence. It's almost like we get told a story. So the Queen's been making more public appearances this year. She's come on TV just a week ago to talk about COVID and the vaccines and how she's coming across like this, she's the matriarchy of the country or whatever. And then we have this interview. We didn't talk about the Queen's husband, which I thought was quite weird, like last night, like his granddad, and he's basically on his deathbed, but just like not even talk about him, don't even bring it up.
What about Meghan's dad and the fact that...
Yeah, and all these little secrets about these letters and things that never got allowed to come out into the public. I mean, that was a very hot topic that I think I was waiting for that to come out. Like, she's had a lot of issues with her dad. Her dad has obviously wanted to say something and couldn't say anything. Just, it's all, we've talked about censorship and those kinds of things before, and I think that's really the danger of where we are at this moment. We've now got a new roadmap for COVID. So that was like, that's really the real news, like the whole Meghan thing. I don't know why there was so much emphasis on that in the media over the last few weeks. It's almost like it's just entertainment in a way. But we also have our new COVID roadmap. I don't even know it properly. I've not really followed it very much.
No, I think for me, I'm just kind of... Last year, I was more interested in when things were going to end and when we're going to get a bit of freedom back. But now I've just kind of accepted that can't really... Again, lack of control. You can't... Like, I can't go to the pub now. I can't go on holiday. I can't get on a plane. I can't even book a hotel in the UK. So I could focus on it and say, I could complain about it, but again, can't really control it. So just focus on what you can impact, really. And that's, working hard and pushing the business forward and spending time with my family. That's pretty much all I can do. Again, I could get involved in political debate on Facebook all day, like I know quite a few people do, or I could try and claim that it's been dealt with wrongly or rightly, and spend time doing that. But you don't gain anything by engaging in what social media or the media wants you to engage in.
I think that's just part of the game, getting people riled up and
division, isn't it? That's when someone's passionate, when someone's when people are divided, it's noisy. You get, and it's much easier to manipulate people who are highly emotional and who are quite extreme in their views. Like if everybody's like in the middle, you can't tip the balance. Whereas if everybody's on the left and the right, like to the extremes, it's very easy to tip the balance, like, because obviously the weight's not evenly distributed. So I think you can sway public opinion a lot easier when everybody's kind of divided, really.
Huxley says you only need 20% of a nation to make significant change.
Yeah.
So you don't even need half. It's just 20%.
Yeah. If you surveyed like 100 people on social, you would probably find that 5 to 10% of people only air their views on social media, but it feels like everybody is doing because it's so noisy.
Yeah.
But you find a lot of people, I mean, I don't talk about anything. I mean, this is probably the most kind of controversial conversation I've had on a public platform. I tend to avoid it because it doesn't achieve anything for me. It just increases division. I have this privately. I'll talk privately with my friends, my family about my views, and I'll be open-minded with people. And like I'm a very open-minded person when it comes to most things. Really, it's for me. I've only got my experiences to draw on. I want to hear other people's experiences and draw on them and make my own opinions from that.
Yeah.
Whereas what you find on social media is, we've spoken about it already, it's just so divided, and I think it's a scary place to be, really. 50 years ago, your opinions were between yourself and the people you knew. Nowadays, your opinion can be everywhere. It can be, people all over the world can see your opinion and hear it and disagree with it and argue with you. And when someone attacks your opinion, you protect it all the more. You push back, and it's very difficult when you're not in a room with somebody, when it's just literally a screen. It's very difficult to be objective because all you want to do is say, I'm right in what I think, you're attacking me. And that's, people don't get their opinions changed on social, but you don't really see it on social media, people getting their opinions changed.
The problem with social is that you have rallying, and I do think there is an element of generational influence as well. I think I read a stat yesterday that consumers now, I think over 60% of consumerism is happening in the digital age. So, we are transforming, like everybody is transforming now to digital only. I mean, look at what's happening. We've been looking at all kinds of like virtual related, whatever you want to call it, over the last few weeks. Like NFTs is it's not new actually, it's just something that I've only personally just come across it. And it's like buying art in digital space. It's bizarre, really. For me, it's bizarre. But for somebody in 20 years, it will be just normal. It will be bizarre in 20 years to actually look back and say, well, that guy used to collect Pokemon cards. Like, why would he even buy a physical card? It's weird.
Yeah, because a physical card can degrade, it can...
Yeah.
It's, the value diminishes because it degrades.
Yeah. And, the point there is that what ends up happening online, the way things are now, like, you couldn't rally the way you could... You couldn't rally like this 20 years ago. Like, if somebody had a belief system, you either had to be on TV, and that's how you would gain your rally. You would be able to talk on TV and gain followers or whatever you want to call it. But now everybody's got followers. Like, you can go and build your own following.
Is it positive or negative or neither?
I don't think it's either. I think it's what you make of it. You can gain a following and do great things. Look at Tony Robbins, for instance. Like, some people might hate Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins has garnered an incredible following over the last 20 years of his career. And he talks about positive change, personal development, how you can improve your life. There's nothing negative about it, really, unless you really, I don't know, if you're just a negative person, maybe you'll find something negative about it. But generally, it's a positive message, isn't it? Like, whether you agree with it or not. Religion. Like, religion can be a negative thing if it's overindulged, if it's used in the wrong way, but then it's also positive if you learn values from it and morals and ethics, and that can be great. But the problem with social is anybody can go and build a following. And it doesn't mean that some people are lesser than the other. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that some people probably shouldn't have a following. Like, they might not have the capacity to be a leader, like a leader of thought is what I mean. So if you've got someone online who's got 1 million followers and their life approach is, well, shit, you know, like they might be negative. They might have really illogical views on politics or race or money or building a career. Like, they might think that it's okay to go kill people, for instance, like extreme example. But if that's their perspective on with their 1 million followers, and all of a sudden that's terrible, isn't it?
Well, the problem you've got is that if someone's using like killing somebody as an example, if you inherently know it's wrong, but then 10 people come and say, "Oh yeah, I want to kill someone too,"
exactly,
then it starts to validate because you want to do it. You'll use that to validate your ideas. Well, they want to do it, so I can't be wrong.
Mob mentality.
Yeah, there's 10 other people who want to do it, and that's the problem. I think is, you know, back in the day, you know, if that was you, then you know you probably would never be able to find a group of people who back up extreme views like that, because it's a minority. It's a minority of a minority of people, and those people could be spread, you know, in 100 different countries, you know, in 20,000 different cities. But now you can connect with everybody who's got a similar interest. I think, again, it's just division, isn't it? We're becoming a more divided society, but the groups that are formed are stronger. So it's kind of like we're divided as groups, not as individuals, really.
Yeah. And I think everybody needs to attribute themselves to a group. They don't need to. Everybody feels they need to now. So it's like Black Lives Matter. Let's take that as an example. Now, if you look at Black Lives Matter from afar, let's not even call it Black Lives Matter. Let's just call it race issues. If you look at it from afar, we should challenge people's views on racism and try to build better systems to alleviate the impact of racism. We should try and educate people the best that we can, but we should also understand that if somebody is inherently racist, it's probably very difficult to change that view because that's who they are foundationally. Now, that's my view on it. That's it. That's pretty much as far as it goes. I think we should educate people, but I also think, you know what? Racism has existed for thousands of years, and it's probably always going to be there. That's where I am. Now, I don't think my view is negative. I think it's positive in that I do think we should try and take steps. But now if you look at BLM, why is there so much divide of BLM? Why do people have so many opposing views on racism? Because in my head, I think, well, shit, nobody wants to be racist, do they? Like, why would anybody want to be racist? But somehow in society, we've created two sides of the perspective of racism, which is mad. Because in essence, it should just be a positive thing. It should just be like, look, we don't want to be racist. We don't want to put anybody down for the color of skin, treat them differently, or give them any less rights. That's it. Like, why is it not just that easy? It is because of things like social media, because it completely fucks up the way people can completely dilute the message and make it into something else, make it into a political thing, and make it into more about the ego, whereas like person A is like, well, I think this is how we tackle racism, and I don't think we should do this and we should do that. And then person B is like, yeah, but that's not going to solve it because I think we should do it like this. And then all of a sudden, the actual message of curing racism doesn't even matter anymore. Now it's about
how we do it.
Yeah, now it's like, well, is BLM a good thing or a bad thing? That's where I think it all goes wrong, because it's like that's not what we're trying to sort out here, is it?
No. I think the argument becomes about how you solve these problems and how you take steps forward to make things better. The problem is everybody argues about how to do it. Nobody focuses on actually doing it. So, like, my view is, I mean, you can talk about anything where there's inequality. My view is to treat everybody equally and give everybody opportunity, regardless of, race, religion, gender. It doesn't matter. Always treat everybody equally. That's my belief, and I try and do that day to day, and I make an effort to do that. But then, if my view on how we do that is different than somebody else, but they want the same outcome as I do, why attack me for doing what I think is right and doing, actually doing what we all want to do, but because I do it in a different way, or you don't believe I'm doing it correctly, why attack me for that? Because it doesn't achieve anything. All it does is it causes more division and stops people from acting because they're afraid of being attacked.
Yeah.
You see it all the time on, again, social media. Yeah, you see people being attacked for...
It's the race and gender thing for me. It's like, why are we still arguing about the same shit? Like, just be who you want to be and just let people be how they want to be. Like, that's it. Like, just don't piss anyone off and just get on with life. I don't think anybody has to prescribe to new values. I think that's wrong. Like, as the generations go on, new values will be created. So our children, for instance, will look at gender completely different to how we look at it, because the values we've grown up with is different. Like, I won't get into pronouns and all that because I think it's quite a complex topic. But I think, like, a lot of people are offended if they don't get called a correct pronoun, for example, right? I don't personally think... I wouldn't. If it was me, I wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't be offended. And it's not because I think right or wrong of the thing. It's just that I respect the fact that your values at your time are probably different to where they're going to be in 10 years because it's a brand new thing. But I think the pressure that comes from social is like, you have to adopt. And if you don't, you're wrong. So it's like, if you don't accept and prove that you're not racist, you're wrong. Which I think is ridiculous, because I wouldn't sit here and think you're racist just because you're white. It's like stupid.
But is that racism that you assume I'm racist because I'm white? Like, this is or can it not be racism because I'm not the minority? This is like, it's very difficult because I'm not, like, I act how I act based upon my own experience and based on my own values. So I'm not, I don't go through life and treat people differently for any given reason. The only time I would do is if someone was a dick to me, I'm probably going to be a dick to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Regardless.
matter. Regardless, yeah. If someone's nice to me and you're my friend, then I'm going to treat you the same back. If someone is less fortunate than me, i.e. someone's homeless or someone's struggling, I'm going to try and help that person if I can do. And if they're not, then, I'm not going to go out of my way to try and help people. So I think for me, that's kind of how I am. And the reason I don't engage in so many things is because everything I try and do is done, privately. So if I'm helping somebody, I don't need social media to say, oh my God, you're amazing for helping that person, because I don't get anything from that. I don't even get anything from helping somebody. I'm not trying to get something for me. Not that I know of anyway. It's just, I think it's the right thing to do. But
yeah,
that's the issue. I think so many people now crave that attention. They want their opinions validated because that's what makes them feel good, is that I'm right and people agree with me. And I just think it's a really dangerous place to be. Like, we're trying to find things that, we're trying to find sexism, we're trying to find racism. Like, I know it all exists. I know it all exists. I know it's out there. But I think sometimes we go to places it doesn't exist and we try to create it.
Yeah.
And I just think that is what is dangerous. And, I don't know where the world's going to go with it. But all I know is that, it's very easy to go and call someone racist or sexist when they're not, nowadays, and you see it quite often.
I mean, I've been called sexist.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, I'm not.
No, well, this is it. Like,
That's just because like I don't make the effort to say that I'm not. Basically, in a very summarized way of saying.
Yeah, but then I think for me, it's all about actions, like words, right? Words are just words are empty. They don't mean anything. What means something is action. Like when you do something, that's when like that's your belief system is like based on your action. Like I could say anything right now, but my actions may not back it up.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about actions and not words. And if my actions showed that I was sexist or racist, call me out for it. But I'm pretty sure they won't do because that's not who I am. But all I see on social media nowadays is everybody going after each other for being these things, and everybody then having to defend themselves and say, I'm not. And then you get, it snowballs and then someone gets cancelled. And that's it. But again, these are like siloed views from me. Like I try and live my life the best I can and treat people equally the best I can. And I don't tend to engage in anything to do with these topics because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean if I saw someone being racist or sexist, I wouldn't stand up for the person and tell that person they were wrong, because I would do. But I don't go seeking it.
It's not like you've got like this little meter in your pocket that says could be racist, so to say.
No.
That's not the way to live life. Like, because then you are actually discriminating in the opposite way.
I've had a conversation recently with somebody privately, and I said, like, I saw sexism kind of happening. Like, I won't go into any details, but I went to this person and said, I've seen this happening. Like, if you feel the same way, do you want me to say something? Because I'm more than happy to. But it's your choice. I just want you to know that I see it. I'm here if you need me. And if you want me to do something about it, I will. No problem. But that's your decision. Yeah. The person said, no, I've got it handled. It's okay. And that was it. So for me, I've not told anybody that. I've not gone onto social media and said, there, I've stood up for somebody. All I've done is what I think is the right thing to do. I've called it out and I've offered myself as a resource if required, but this person didn't require me. So that's what I think is the right thing to do. And if I see it happening, I'll call it out and I'll offer my assistance in any capacity. But I think if everybody just did that, we would all move forward and we would all be happier and we would all be more, the world would be a more inclusive place, because what would happen is the people who were racist and sexist and the people who, held those views, they wouldn't be engaged with and they wouldn't get the oxygen that they need. It would just get drowned out by essentially good, by inclusion and by fairness. But, that doesn't, sell media space, does it?
No. If you look at where BLM even started, like the original story it's gone. Like the moment's gone. And it doesn't mean it's no respect to what happened, but it's like we don't even reflect on that anymore. It's become a complete different political agenda, which that's where things get, that's where things get messed up. So, yeah.
How many minutes is this?
Pretty far in now, 51 minutes. So what I think we'll do is let's have a 5-minute chat about white label. That's what the whole podcast is supposed to be about. Oh no. Okay. Well, it is what it is. So, all right. Business stuff. So, what is white label for anybody that probably isn't going to know?
It's pretty much taking a product, i.e. something that somebody else has developed, and applying your brand to it and essentially taking away, the creator's brand. So it appears to be your product, your business. Pretty much like if you go to a supermarket, you can see white labeled products from supermarkets. Like UK, we've got, Tesco. US, you've got Walmart. These places have got their own branded products. Now, Tesco's not got a baked bean factory or a chicken factory. They'll be white labeling that product from a producer. So that's kind of how we see it every day. And we're obviously doing that within our business now. It's been something we've wanted to do for 2 years, but we're eventually doing it.
So the white label product is basically the Viddyoze agency product. So it's not like the core offering. It's like a Viddyoze app on steroids, essentially.
Yeah. So essentially, to the end user, it'll be pretty much the same as what we have right now. But to the person who buys the white label kind of license, they'll have more control in the back end, and they can do more with the accounts. And the reason we're doing this is because the demand has been there from day one, but also as a business, we tend to sell direct to the end user. So we will go and sell to a small business or someone in a marketing team, or potentially even someone who has a YouTube channel, or it could be that end user. But the issue we've got is you've got to market to every single person out there. So different languages, different businesses, different verticals. There's a lot to go at. And, we've done a pretty good job at it today, but I feel that to really kind of acquire more customers, and even if this is done via a white label, so we never own the customer, it still grows the revenue. So to acquire more revenue, we could go and approach a web design agency in Brazil or India or Australia, who's got 1,000 clients each, and say, look, sell our product into your user base, and then it might be that we translate the product into different languages for different markets, and that again is white labeled. So we've got somebody in the Brazilian market selling to Brazilian businesses in Portuguese, rather than us going in as a British company, not understanding the culture, not understanding the language, and trying to go and grow within that market. So I think the white label is going to allow us to really go after these kind of markets in a different way. And it might be that you're a SEO agency in Manchester, or you're a web design agency in Baltimore or something. You can still white label the product and sell it into an English market, into your existing user base. But I think there's a big opportunity for us as a business to partner with some really interesting businesses who can go and get, sell our product into different markets. Yeah.
So obviously it's a massive thing for us as a business, because it's the first time we're going to do this. David, you've obviously done this before with your older software company with Jamie.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting opportunity for us, but I think just from the user's perspective, it's like massive opportunity, really.
Yeah. I think essentially we've probably spent best part of $4 to $5 million
lots of money
on developing the product, and you'll be able to white label it for a small
nominal amount.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, we did it with our previous products, and we charged $150 a month.
Yeah.
But we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on development, and that for us, we grew that into about $1 million revenue business. We did pretty well with it, and we had customers who had tens of clients and tens of customers that were using our platform, and it was an amazing kind of grounding for us in that way of selling a product. But I just believe that Viddyoze as a product, it's perfect for this kind of thing. Because we aren't ever going to capture every single business in the world, but we can go and capture 1,000 people who can go and sell to 1,000 businesses each, and that's 1 million people. And for us, that's what we see as a kind of the next phase of our growth isn't just us going direct to the end user. It's going to the people who can go direct to the end user for us, and then we all benefit.
Cool. So there you go. That's pretty much what white label is. We're going to be releasing it. I don't know how the timing is going to work with this podcast, so it might already be out, but probably not. So it'll be probably coming out over the next couple of weeks from when you hear this. So just make sure you check out Viddyoze.com for any updates. And also our Facebook user group. We'll probably be posting quite a number of updates in there about what we're going to be doing. And that's it, really. So that's going to be exciting. Keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll be doing, I think Jamie will probably do like a webinar just to kind of go through what white label is and that kind of thing. So we'll try and get details for that posted here if we can. And underneath this video if it's on YouTube. So cool. Anything else you want to add?
Just apologies to Nindy for not talking about, obviously, the agenda he put in place. But, I think it tends to be the way with podcasts. I mean, I think for me personally, it's good to have guidelines, but sometimes we are going to go off on a tangent and talk about something that's topical. And I think, we've just kind of done that today, which was, I find it all interesting, if a bit kind of, what's the word? Can't even think of the word right now. It's probably because I'm tired, but I think it's one of those where it can be, again, cause division, and we've all got our own opinions, but I think my opinions aren't ever definitive. I'm very open to kind of them being changed, and I think when you put something out there, on a podcast or on social, people assume that is what you are and what you stand for, but for me, it's very changeable and movable, and I think you're probably similar to me.
Yeah, I'm always just of the mind that you can't. The more something is shoved down my throat, visibly, like I can see that there is a certain narrative that's just being pushed. My personality is just always asking why. Like, why is this the narrative that's being pushed? What else could it mean?
Yeah.
And it's just critical thinking. And sometimes I'm wrong. It's fine. Like, I think it's better to be wrong than to just take what you're told. Like, I think if we all just took what we're told without asking questions, we'd be fucked, basically.
Yeah.
We need to have an open mind to things, even if it means, sometimes you might appear to be the quack of the group because you think a little bit differently. And if we go back in time, we go historically over time, it's the people that think different that were the ones that actually changed things. And, they stood up for a certain thing that they believed in. And those are the people we look back on now and say, fuck, that person was actually right. Maybe we should learn from that and not just kind of fall victim to propaganda, essentially. That's all I think about it.
Just like to end on a controversial subject. What's your opinion on the destruction of like historic statues and things? And what's your opinion on that? Because again, you've spoken quite a bit about, what's going on in the world, but what's your opinion on like destroying history that, maybe something does portray like someone was racist or someone was, a certain thing. Do you think that they should be destroyed and removed from history, or do you think we should keep them there as a reminder?
I don't think that we should destroy history, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like Gandhi, for example. Gandhi was racist, but he was also prolific and important to Indian culture. So, we, as Indian people, we respect what he did for the nation, even though he was racist. Winston Churchill wasn't the best character, but he also was a prolific character in that he progressed civilization, he progressed the nation. It's history, it's what it is. But the real question is, why is history being wiped in the first place? And, it's too deep of a topic, but my honest belief, right, is that history is not just political history, but all forms of history are slowly being eroded away from our books, from libraries, and everything is basically it's almost like there is no memory. If we go down 50, 60 years into the future, forward 50, 60 years into the future, If we don't have these things, where will we get our history from? That's the concern. And it's, it makes you start to wonder, why are these things happening? And it's not just statues. There's actually a lot of research being done right now into like the perversion of historical civilizations. So things like Göbekli Tepe, I think I said that right. The Mayan temples and the Sumerian tablets and things like that. All these things are really pivotal moments in our history, which are actually currently being suppressed and tucked away and just erased from existence completely. And all those things are really meaningful to me, specifically, like really important to me, because I want to know where I come from, kind of thing. So what happens is if we start wiping these things out, personally, I believe it enables us to create a new narrative for the future. So are we ripping down statues? Are people actually going and ripping these statues down because of a political movement? Or are we actually just making an effort just to get rid of the shitty past that we once had, so we can try and create a utopia for the future? And that's what I think about it. It's not really what I think. It's just more of a question that I have in my mind, is like, why are we actually doing that in the first place? Because I don't know, I guess maybe people have got really passionate views, so they're going to go and rip a statue down. But it's happening. I don't know why. But even our history books are changing. All the time our history books are changing. That's bad. We shouldn't do that. Whether it's good or bad history, I don't think we should be changing anything. It is what it is.
Well, imagine if every bad experience you had in your life, you could click a button and just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I think we learn the most from the negative things in life sometimes. If something bad happens, if I go and put my hand in a fireplace and I burn my hand, I'm like, oh shit, that really hurt. And it took me 6 weeks to recover. I'm not going to do that again. But if I don't wipe that memory out,
yeah,
and I don't know it hurts, I'm going to go and do the same thing again. And I'm not going to learn from the mistakes I made. So for me, history is a big mixture of good and bad things, and everything that has happened has driven us to where we are today, whether it has been positive or negative. And I think you've got to learn from the negative things and just change the story around it. If the plaque on the thing says, this guy was an amazing person and he did X, Y, Z, but he also did these negative things as well.
Yeah.
We should learn from it.
I think the institutions of the world always do their best efforts to hide the bad things. It's like the UFO thing, right? We're not going to talk about UFOs. It's just too fucking wild. But we've had a disclosure of 2 million CIA documents that date back all the way to the 1940s. 2 million documents. Now, are we going to just basically... Well, we already have. We've already forgiven the government for not telling us. But we have every right to know that. We have every right as a human being that lives on the planet to know if there is other things happening on our planet that we don't know about that could be detrimental, or it could be really positive. We don't know. But that's been tucked away for over 60 years. And it doesn't matter anymore. The history books won't ever tell us. In the future, we won't ever know that information was hidden. It's just that part of it's going to be erased, essentially. And there's all kinds of things like that in the future we won't think about it anymore. Things just kind of get tucked away. And this is the problem with world events like the 9/11s of the world, or the London bombings and things like that. We're only going to get to see the bits that remain in the history books, and not the bits that made us actually question why these things actually happened in the first place. That's the danger. For me, that's the real problem, is it will probably get to a stage where we just don't have the capacity to ask the questions anymore, which is sad, really, but is what it is. I think we're lucky to be in a time, specifically my generation, your generation, we've gone from being able to go and find lots of information, and we're now moving into a time where actually information is becoming very difficult to find. So it's we've had the best of both worlds, basically.
Yeah, I think that, it's not difficult to find. There's just too much.
Yeah.
So it used to be 2 haystacks or, 3 haystacks. It's now a needle and 10 haystacks. The thing that might be correct is hidden sometimes. It's still there, but you've got to go through a lot more information. That's social media's opinions, isn't it?
Yeah.
A million people could write a million different articles with a million different views. And then the one truth could be, you know, a mixture of 10 of those articles, but you're never going to find it.
And then you've got essentially the influence of your search engines.
Look at journalism, right? So true journalism would be critical thought. It would be objective. It would be multiple different viewpoints from multiple different people, and it would be a researched piece. Journalism nowadays is how can we generate the most clicks to generate the most revenue, and how can we do that by being controversial and, you know, stoking up division and driving people to argue and driving fear. So for me, like journalism, what I've done recently is I've started subscribing to premium like apps and premium websites, whereby the journalism is of better quality. So like sports wise, like The Athletic, you know, I pay, it's like £1 a month or a bit more, but the journalism's so much better. The stories are much more enjoyable to read.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to apply that to different areas of kind of where I get my media from. Because I enjoy reading different viewpoints, but I enjoy doing it in a way where it's objective and nobody's getting angry. You know, like I want to hear different viewpoints, but I want them to be well researched. I want them to be, you know, I want it to be done in a way where it's like a civil conversation around the table, where we don't get mad because somebody doesn't agree with us. We listen to what it is that's being said, and we use that to either, you know, change our belief system or back up elements of our belief system and shape who we are as people, rather than just, you know, you're wrong because you disagree, and I'm going to go and tell everybody that you're sexist or you're racist or because you've said something.
The thing, you hit the nail on the head. It is literally about clicks. Like, there was a Nestle piece last week about the vegan Kit Kat, basically. And I won't get into it too heavy because it is a long story, but like, you know, there's so much push from Nestle pushing this vegan chocolate. And you know what? Great. It's great that they're doing a vegan chocolate. It's mint. Like, fantastic, actually. Because if anybody does a little bit, just a tiny bit of digging into how chocolate is created, you'll find a whirlwind of information as to how bad it actually is, to the point where I don't even like fucking eating chocolate anymore. It's that bad. Because it affects children from my background, essentially. Like, from where I'm from, that's basically the bread and butter of chocolate creation, and it's child labor, child slavery, and all these other things that are linked to creating chocolate. But anyway, the point is that from a journalistic perspective and social media, all we actually see is how Nestle is this incredible company that is doing something so amazing. But a little bit of critical thinking will show the complete opposite, and that actually this is a company that's pervaded laws, broken laws, price fixed, and manipulated nations and uneducated mothers on how to bring their children up. There's so many things. And this isn't about bashing Nestle. It's just a point that I'm making on how journalism is so skewed. Like, we don't get to see the full story ever, really, unless we actually go and read. And now, if you just go on LinkedIn or social and you just see the story, and that's your news consumption for the day, well, that's it then. That's your opinion formed. I love vegan chocolate. I love Nestle. I'm also just going to eat normal chocolate because I love that too, because that's your opinions. It's created. And look, it's not anybody's fault, really. It's media. Like, we are basically victims of what we digest. And there is a responsibility, a sole responsibility for companies like Google, big tech, to actually be neutral from the information they give us. And I find it so ironic that Google's mantra is don't be evil. Like, that's how they started the company. It was, let's not be evil with what we can do here, because they knew from day one the power that they've got in their palms. But literally, ultimately, they've become this machine that fuels propaganda, fear, and that's it. And political fact-checking websites, basically, to alter people's opinions. And it's a fucking dangerous thing. It really is. Like, because it's fine when we're just talking about fucking Nestle. Fine, like, all right, cool, well, Nestle shit, great. But it's dangerous when we're being given information about how we should live our lives and, you know, what we should put in our body. those kinds of things become bad.
I think the scary thing for me is that I can have any opinion that I want, yeah, no matter how crazy it was, and then I can then go and find somebody or a group of people to back up my own opinions, so that I think I'm right. Like I can think anything I want right now, and there will be a group of people on the internet who would then back up my views, no matter how negative or extreme they are, how unbalanced, how unhinged. There's people out there who will make me think I'm right.
Yeah.
And that for me is scary, like completely. We don't go and do our own research. We're not open-minded anymore.
You have to do your own research. That's the biggest thing here. And I think half of the issues we have right now, the virus, whatever it is, the problem is not the virus. The problem is us and how we disseminate information and how we act upon that information. That's the real issue that we've got. And hopefully we'll do something about it, but probably not.
Wow. Well, I always kind of mention that I think we always digress, but this has got to be our biggest digression to date.
Ultimate digression.
This has been, yeah. I find this stuff interesting though.
It's more interesting than talking about white label though.
What it is for me, right, is everything we talk about, yeah, all our opinions and how we think, that for me has been shaped over years of kind of reading books, of going to therapy, of a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, a lot of, conversations like this. But then, you can apply that to so many aspects of your life. And for me, I utilize this train of thought and these things in business all the time. I'm always looking for things from different angles. I'm looking at someone's opinion. Is that right? Or can we, let's get somebody else's opinion. What does somebody else think with a different experience? When kind of someone gives me something, do I take it at face value? Do I look at what their intentions are? Why are they making that decision? Is it something that is positive or negative? Are they doing it for themselves? Doing it for the company? Doing it for me? Doing it because they want a promotion? Doing it because they're pissed off? And it's kind of the way I look at things is it can be applied in so many different ways. But when you apply it to business, I think it just makes you a better entrepreneur. So same thing, you're looking at the media and not being influenced by the media. It can be the same in a business, not being influenced by the pressure you're feeling in the business, being able to be objective, take emotion out of it.
Yeah, because you could always just follow the trends.
Yeah. Take ego as well. Ego kind of, a lot of online, we want our egos to be stroked. We want to be correct. It's the same in a business. I want people to look at my business and say, "Oh, it's amazing." It feels good when someone says that. But what if the business isn't amazing? But because someone's telling me it is, it makes me feel good.
Yeah,
that's bullshit. You see it online all the time. We all want our egos to be stroked, but egos don't pay the bills.
No, just because you make a post and loads of people like it doesn't mean you're running your business correctly. And I see that so much on LinkedIn. People saying that this is how you should do something. I've had so many arguments on LinkedIn just about people's really extreme perspectives on how a business needs to do something.
A business can be run in millions of different ways, and for me, there's definitely wrong things you can do and there's right things you can do. So there is definitely an element of, but ultimately it comes down to data and it comes down to what your aims are. It might be you don't want to make a profit, you want to make a change in the world. That might be your business. So I want to pay myself, minimum wage, but my entire aim is to go and impact, homelessness. I want to get, 1,000 people off the streets. I don't want to make money. Now I could go in and say, well, you could make a big profit and take more money out. And that's the way you should run a business, because you're there for profit. But this person might not be there for profit. They might be there for change, and that's cool. That's fine. That's the way you could run a business if you wanted to, if that was what you wanted to do. Whereas, you might get someone who's all about profit, who says, what you need to do is X, Y, Z, and you'll make more profit. And you're wrong because you're running the business in this way. Well, you're not wrong. It all depends what your aim is and what your goals are, and it might be you don't want to work 100 hours a week, you want to work 10. And the problem is, on again talking about kind of applying what we've spoken about to business, is that again just cut the extreme views, cut the single-mindedness, just look at things from other people's perspectives, and operate that way. You kind of, I think you just get you move forward a lot faster, and it's just a lot easier to kind of to grow something when you're not looking at kind of what everybody else is saying, and you're not believing everybody else's bullshit. You just focus on what it is you want, what it is you're trying to obtain, and move forward that way.
Yeah.
So I think the end of this kind of podcast, it's been quite a long one. I think probably the message is, be open, be critical when you think about when you get information,
Especially as a business owner. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not like trying to build a career in a job. You're probably an entrepreneur who wants to, develop and progress. Like, and to do that, you have to have that critical element to you, because if we just go every day just taking in everything we're getting from everywhere else and not actually thinking for ourselves, you're not going to really progress. Like, because sometimes you have to be a little bit rebellious in a way. Like, that's how you make a step forward, is doing things a little bit differently, and stepping out of the box that you're put into. And because if we just did what we were told as kids, we'd all be working jobs, wouldn't we? Just, you're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to get a degree, then you're supposed to work a job. And
if you look at one of the most successful investors of all time, like Warren Buffett, he says when everybody's greedy, be fearful. And when everyone's fearful, be greedy. So he's literally made his fortune by doing the opposite of what other people do.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't tell you all you need to know, then I don't know what will. And that's kind of it. It's just, I think one thing I've learned this year is not just this year, but probably over the last 10, is that I've been told that I'm doing the wrong thing, that I'm going to fail, that I'm stupid. I've been told all these things in my life by various different people. And this is friends, family, co-workers, or employees or ex-employees. And every time they say it, I'm like, do you know what? It's your reality. That's what you think. But I do not believe that inherently. And I'm going to do things my way. And I sit here today and I'm happy with where I am. I think I've done, an amazing job to get to where I am. And if I compare myself to the people who were kind of those naysayers, I'm probably in an area they would like to be. They would like to be in the position I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And that's all I need to understand that I'm doing the right thing and I'm operating in the correct way. And that just, I'll carry on doing the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with that pretty much. Cool.
So we got to a final message. So yeah, I think that was important at the end of that, because it was so kind of off topic, but I think we've pulled it back and rescued it, and we've given some sort of lesson from this podcast. So yeah, we got there eventually. Cool.
All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed that, make sure you leave a comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, leave a review as well on the iTunes and wherever it is that you're listening. That'd be great.
Do we have many reviews now?
I don't know. Let's see if we've got any more.
I'm always scared to check just in case, because I think I've got a bit of like imposter syndrome, like I should not be doing a podcast.
Let's see. Just 3 clicks. Podcast. Let's see. This is iTunes.
At 3.
It doesn't say. Hold on. Where did we get it from before? If I just type reviews, that will probably do it, won't it? Reviews. It's 5. But you know what? This is 5 in the UK now. We only had 2 in the UK before.
Right, okay.
So if I go US, there's 6 in the US and 5 in the UK. So we've got 11 now. That's gone up a little bit.
How many stars? Like 3.
It's all 5 stars.
Nice.
Yeah, they're all 5-star reviews.
That's made me feel a tiny bit better.
There's a review here that says, "Hey guys, getting better all the time. What a cool journey for Viddyoze. I'm inspired by your creativity. You keep coming up with smart ideas. Love the stories. I love what you're all doing. Can questions be asked on the podcast? Question mark.
We should do a podcast on just questions.
How do we get the questions? We can mail everybody out and just say, get your questions in for the podcast. That would be a good idea.
Well, mail people to a Google form, maybe.
Yeah, and then we'll get the best questions and we'll go through those. Okay, we'll do that then. The answer is yes, you can ask questions, but that's how we'll do it. We'll set that up. And Nindy, if you're listening, let's organise getting a mail out, getting a form where we can ask some questions, get people to ask some questions, and then we'll start going through those on the podcast. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.